It's 3:31. I should call this meeting to order, and I'm just gonna run through attendance, see who's here, and we have a few people who are running late, so when they get here, it'd be great. Just say here. Manuela.
Here.
Awesome. Alyssa.
Here.
Lauren.
Here.
Megan. I don't see Megan yet. Nick. I don't see Nick either. Summer.
Here.
Uma. Let's see, Uma. Yana. I think Yana's coming. I'm here. Maggie.
Here.
Oh, Anthony. I miss Anthony. Sorry. I see Anthony's here. Jenna.
Here.
Awesome. William.
Here.
Thank you. Amelia. Ali.
Here.
And Thomas.
Here.
It's great to see everyone. Okay, so next up on the agenda is anyone from the public wishing to speak. I don't see anyone necessarily. Okay, then we will move on. Next up on the agenda is...
We have Counselor Butt here. I didn't know if she wanted to speak.
I thank you, Catherine. Hi, Jack. I just wanted to say hello, everyone. I'm Counselor Marian Butt. I'm one of the counselors. I think I appointed probably all of you as you guys are a new council. I just want to congratulate you guys. Have been doing such a great job, and I hadn't been able to come to a meeting, and I saw two of your members speak at the school committee meeting on Tuesday. And so I just wanted to come and say hi, and it worked on my schedule. So I'm just going to be listening, but I want to Lauren and Jack, I saw you guys on Tuesday. So thank you so much, all of you. It's such great work you're doing. And I'm looking forward to seeing you in front of the town council sometime soon. But, and I am really excited to, I feel like I always learn. So I'm going to learn from Anne and also Senator Lewis, who is a friend and will be on later today. So that's it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Irene. Anyone else? Don't see anyone. Next up.
Jack, I do have something that's not on the agenda.
Yeah, it's up.
That is around attendance. So usually I'll try to reach out to people that aren't on the meeting just to make sure everything's okay. And I have an announcement that one of our members has moved. So does anyone know about this? So, oh, Maggie. Do you want to say anything?
Yeah, so Amelia has moved to North Carolina, so I don't think she'll be able to do it anymore. So, yeah.
Yeah, so Amelia has moved to North Carolina. She sends her regrets that she enjoyed so much her participation in the youth council, and she is available if anyone, she has her email address that I'll send out to everyone. Okay.
Okay, awesome. Okay, I took her off the list. But okay. Anthony, you're up. The minutes from our last meeting.
Yeah, so last meeting we started out by sort of having a conversation with Mr. Lyons and Ms. McLeod about sort of the recent comments that are made about the youth council with regard to the recent decisions and sort of the misinformation that was cycling around at the time. And following that, we talked about possibly having a follow-up meeting with Town Council Chair Ann Santos about the structure and manner of youth council applications for the upcoming term year, which I believe is ending June 30th. And we talked a little bit about the Safe Routes to School assessment, which I believe occurred recently, which was very exciting. And we also had a sort of a mental health update about the surveys, and those surveys are out, the responses are in, and we'll definitely talk about this a little bit later on. But Lauren, Alyssa, and I are planning having a meeting with the guidance counselors at some point, or I believe the 25th, so the Thursday after vacation, to talk about the results and what to do going from there. We just had some brief updates from the Communications and Outreach Subcommittee, and also some liaison updates. And yeah, I believe that was it. We had a small Mr. Colin Tony made a small appearance towards the end of the meeting, just to send his regards. And yeah, I believe that was all for last meeting.
Thank you, Anthony. Do I hear a motion to accept the minutes from the January 29th meeting?
I motion.
Thanks, Maggie. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Thanks, Lauren. Any discussion? Not. I'll call the roll. Manuela,
Yes.
Alyssa,
Yes.
Lauren,
Yes.
Summer,
Yes.
Yana,
Yes.
Maggie,
Yes.
Jenna,
Yes.
and William.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have a discussion with a BU professor, Anne. She came here, and we're so grateful to have her. Thank you for coming.
And I'm just going to mention why I decided to invite Anne to this meeting. I know a lot of you have talked about how do we hear from our peers, especially in this COVID world where we can't have an open forum. And so Anne was recommended to me because not only is she a BU professor of communications, but our groups have actually used her as a consultant in the past. My coalition did, and she's really like an expert on communications, running focus groups, things like that. Plus, she has the added experience of being a former school committee member, so she understands Robert's Rules of Order and what a public body like yours can do and can't do. So I thought she would be a great person to have on here to say, how could you all host an open forum to get some ideas of what issues are important to young people in this community, be it they want a skate park, they want safer routes to school, they want more policy change around certain issues. So at that point, I'm going to turn it over to Anne to maybe ask you some questions and talk about this issue.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Very impressive work that you're all doing and being such strong leaders in your community, and very impressed at how you're running your meetings through the Robert's Rules of Order, and very impressive. So it's great to be here. I congratulate you on all of the work that you've done. And I know that it must be hard work, but being a leader oftentimes is hard. And when you're standing up for what you believe in, and as hard as it probably is to be going through this, it's great. It's great experience. It's great experience to be going through that. And it's as hard as it is. So I was talking to Catherine, and we were just kind of talking about what had been happening and, the community fallout, what we've seen on the community group, and, some ways around engagement. So I've built a career on doing consumer engagement, where we bring people together to find out not just the people who are being really vocal, but pretty much, whoever we can, and we call them consumers in the broad sense, means whoever we're interested in talking to find out how do they think and feel and where are those attitudes coming from. Because the thing is that when you're trying to move something forward, the worst thing you can do is make it so that people feel like it's being shoved down their throat and that they don't have any say and that they don't have any voice. And then sometimes a way that things can go quickly downhill is when people start calling names or start, getting really angry and showing a lot of emotion in it. Because all that does is that and you probably have all experienced this, that you feel very passionately about this, and you're talking about somebody who feels very passionately about it on the other side. And what is your first instinct to do with that person? That person saying, oh no, my dad was a warrior, and that's been a symbol forever. It's what Wakefield's all about, and it's what Wakefield stands for. General Galvin, drew it. And what is the natural response that people have who feel the other way?
I know, definitely to be defensive of their decision, their point of view.
Yes. And you know what that does? And there's a lot of research that backs this up. There's a lot of academic literature on this, is that when you start trying to change somebody's mind who feels that way, and you just try to send facts to them and just throw facts at them, what ends up happening is that they dig their heels in even further. And what it does is that then they take it from having an opinion to making it an action. And then they're going to be like, well, I'm going to get involved in this. I'm going to go write this. So it's always better to listen to people and to understand where they're coming from, and to present things in terms of so try to have community engagement where it's inclusive, where you're really the leaders. You're bringing up issues and concerns, because I bet you and this isn't just around the issue with the logo, but it's around any topic that you're going to be, anything that you're going to be doing. You're the leaders on this youth council, and as leaders you want to hear from all students, and there might be issues that are happening that might be totally off your radar. And so by talking to other people in your community and having these community engagements, you're going to find out issues that might be important for you to be working on. And also in terms of if you are trying to get something through that you really believe on, that the youth council is advocating for, you want to be able to find out what are those kind of counter arguments, so that then you can engage people in an understanding. And the idea is that with messaging is that the more personalized also that you can get that message, you make it less personal to them so that they don't feel personally attacked. You listen to them without making accusations that they're wrong, they don't know what they're talking about. That only drives people away. But you might talk about, people who are Native Americans. I don't know if you've ever heard of an organization called Cultural Survival. You've heard of it? So I have some connections there. They can actually, if you need any help in terms of messaging or connection with people, with Native Americans, that they can connect you, and I can connect you with that organization if you haven't already been connected. So I'm kind of talking on two different tracks because I'm not exactly sure, Catherine, where you wanted me to be going.
No, it's helpful to have this information, and that's something that we tried to do along the way with the mascot issue, is really look at both sides. And I think kind of for learning too is like there's some different some different stories that can be told from the youth's perspective that I didn't even think about. Like some youth have experiences wearing the mascot outside of the community, and the comments that they get from other people, be it, on college campuses or from their pediatrician, or, different stories that I've been hearing in the last couple of weeks. Like, how do you weave that story in? Because all the different voices of young people to be brought forward, and the young people that are like, this mascot is so important to me. This is what it represents. So to be able to tell those stories too. So telling those stories on both sides, because those personal stories do make a difference. On the other side of it, going forward, how would the youth hold the forum to get an idea of what other issues are important to young people in Wakefield? Do they just invite people to come? Do they do a survey ahead of time to get an idea? What are some ways that they could go about doing that?
So say you say, we want to hear what's on your mind, and you open it up, right? You're probably going to get the same people to show up, right? Probably the same people will show up. So you want to try to diversify that and get more people to show up who aren't used to showing up. So anything that you can do to encourage participation will get a more diverse group of people coming. But I would say, like, probably, smaller group meetings like this size, and ask them, say, we want to hear from you. What's important to you? And we want to get your advice about what are some things that that are important affecting Wakefield that we should be talking about. And then you have, I did a project one time for this organization, Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare Foundation, and they wanted to do a campaign targeted towards teens around social issues. And they kind of identified what they thought were going to be the top issues to talk about, like alcohol and drug use. It was urban, so it was gang violence. It was I can't remember. It was some other issues that they thought, or teen pregnancy. Teen pregnancy was one. And then when we were meeting with these teenagers, what we ended up finding out that it wasn't even on anybody's radar screen was that dating violence was a really big issue. And that kind of said to Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare Foundation, well, we had this idea of what we were going to be talking about in this campaign, but we really need to revisit it because dating violence, it wasn't on our radar screen. Everybody was like, yeah, it's an issue. And they talked about what aspect of it was an issue. So that became kind of the framework to guide the work that they did in their campaign. So you can have, when you do community input, you can have different, you can open up a discussion group, and it's so difficult I'd say, give everybody, bring in pizza and soda and invite them, and that'll encourage them to come. And but with COVID, that's not possible. So if you can think of some way to engage people so that they'd want to come, that would get them there.
Okay, so that's something that you all could think about, how to engage in this virtual world. And then youth council, any ideas on how we could break it into smaller groups where it is, where people would feel more comfortable, like by grade, by Jenna?
Yeah, I think by grade or like 2 grades, because people are more familiar with the people in their grade.
Jenna, that's a great point. You're absolutely right. I agree with you on that. And that's how we typically will do it.
Maggie, you had your hand raised. Just something to add?
I was going to say the same as Jenna.
Totally. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I also think that we can also take this on as like a long-term idea as well, because the virtual space is a great tool. Also, hopefully, the majority of people will be vaccinated by July, August, and then the new term of the council can do a large form of like in-person community engagement outside or doing something like that. So this is over. I think what we're going to look at here is a very long-term approach to make this make our impacts last as long as possible.
And I would say my suggestion would be to have small groups. Like I'd say probably no more virtual group. If you really want to get deep insights, no more than 10 people probably. And then in person, I would limit it to 15 max, and 12 would probably be even better because you really want to get everybody talking and to feel comfortable. So ideally would probably be 8 to 10 per group would be the ideal size, I would say.
Right, that's why we bring on the experts, because I wouldn't have guessed that. So thank you. Do you all have any other questions for Anne?
All right, so can you all fill me in a little bit in terms of what is your role going forward in terms of the mascot?
We are not entirely sure about what our roles continue on, like moving into more of the town like official things, but we actually have that on our agenda next to talk about. And we also have 2 school committee members here, so I think we are going to kind of figure out what our plan is for the future as we move on through this kind of turbulent turbulent kind of town engagement. So
it's amazing. I mean, I don't think that I was dealing with controversies like this until I was on school committee, and I was a whole lot older than you. So it's really tough when you're dealing in your community with controversial issues. But you know what? That's what leaders do. They stand up, and I think that you have all handled yourselves so incredibly well that you make Wakefield very proud. So you're doing great work.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Does anyone have any more questions for her while she's here?
So Anne, I just have one question. Do you have any guidance documents that the youth could use when they're running these smaller groups where they're trying to get ideas of what issues are important to young people in Wakefield?
I do not, but I can create some. I can certainly create some.
Okay, yeah, if you could create some and then the youth can kind of adapt them to what they would feel comfortable.
Yeah, and I can actually I have some of my students read, it's how to conduct focus groups too, is what to do to recruit people. How do you recruit people? What types of questions do you ask? And how do you engage people when they're there? So I can send that information to you, Catherine.
Okay, that would be great. And what's great about this youth council is we have youth from 7th grade all the way up to 12th grade. So we have every grade represented. So
that's wonderful. That's really, really wonderful. So honestly, you guys are making Wakefield really proud. So I was just talking to a colleague right before. I said, I have to get on this call. And I was explaining her what youth council does. And she was so excited. And she said, wow, and what you're working on with the mascot, she was like so impressed. And she was the one who said, she goes, have they gotten in touch with, with all different organizations? And then I was like, I said, I'm not sure. So, but all about, all about the organizations. And so good job.
Thank
Excellent.
you. Thank you for coming.
Can I stay on is it okay for me to stay on while we talk with school committee?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so thank you for coming. And next on the agenda, we have kind of a logo update, just what's happening in the last few weeks. I published a letter in the paper last week, just kind of giving a kind of a factual statement of what we went through. I hope you all read it. If not, I can definitely send that to you. But I think it was received very well, and overall I think it helped just kind of stem misinformation and kind of putting on a more factual basis of what happened. And I hope that kind of took some pressure off you guys. I know it was a pretty stressful few weeks, so I hope that helped at all. But there was a school committee meeting, I think it was yesterday or the day before. And we have two school committee members here. If they're totally open to talk, with Colleen and Tom here. But I know what's going on right now is basically open forum in the next few weeks, correct, Colleen?
Yep. Thank you, Jack, and hello to everybody. Yeah, so we met on Tuesday, and we had I'm not sure if any of you joined, but we had a robust conversation, public comment in the beginning of our meeting, which was very, very well attended. And we really heard opinions from both sides, as you guys have heard. So outside of the public comment during our regular meeting, and our agenda item was for my subcommittee, which is the Policy and Communication Subcommittee, to present the plan for the process moving forward. So Jack, that includes the community forum that you spoke to, and our date for that, we actually just met this morning. So our date for that is February 25th at 7:30. We're working out logistics with Ryan over at WCAT. There's a lot, as you guys have found out the hard way, there's a lot of layers, and in doing something like this, it's a lot of work, right? To like lay the foundation to get to this point. And I actually talked to Anne a couple hours ago, and we had a great conversation about making sure that we communicate the message to all directions as much as possible. We can never cover 100%, right? And I heard from Alyssa, so thank you, Alyssa, who just wanted to make sure that, sort of what type of forum it was. And we're probably going to be structuring it similar to our public comment, where we have a 3-minute time period. So you could tell your peers or, yourselves, prepare for about that time if they would like to speak. And we might need to sort of secure the space a little in terms of, I have to get some guidance from our town council, Tom Mullen, around how we secure the space, but it's also a public meeting, right? So we need to have conversations there because we want to make sure it's structured so that, you know, sort of a door would shut, a remote door at a certain time so that we can organize the people that want to speak and we can manage that. And we're hoping to have it facilitated by a moderator. So that keeps a sort of a neutral voice, managing the conversation and helping us facilitate, you know, how we're going to organize the people speaking. So a lot to be worked out and not a lot of time. It's a little bit of an aggressive timeline, but we feel like, as you guys have seen, people are talking now, right? So this is the time to address the issue, and the school committee make that decision when we get there. So today, actually, a message will be sent out. Hopefully the community will receive it from School Messenger first. I still have to work on the town part of it, but the message will be sent out just sort of as a save the date. So you might see that come across either your parents' emails or your own. And then we're hoping to, you know, have a survey as well that we'll be sending out to the students. We have talked to the district about protecting the students as well. You know, we learned a lot from what went on after your presentation about keeping the students in safe spaces as well, right? So we need to understand how the survey might sort of pit students against each other too, but we want their information. So we need to do that in a safe way. So we're still working out those details as well. But all coming very quickly. Does anyone have any specific questions?
I was wondering, like, I know that I was wondering what kind of our role, if at all, we could help out. Because I know we want to make sure we are as useful as possible. I know we said that back in October, but I just think we want to be as useful as possible to you and the school committee in general. So, like, what can we do to help? How do you need us to? What do you need us to do?
I appreciate that, Jack. I think that we may tap into in even just getting the survey out to students, you know, and how the best way to do that and the safest way to do that. So I know that Superintendent Lyons is discussing that with administrators right now, but then I think your voice would be really important to hear. And, you know, we don't hear all the conversations you all hear, right, between your peers. So I think it's important to get your opinion on that. So if you don't mind that we reach out to you after, he's trying to coordinate that with his administrators and how, you know, even, you know, we talked about middle school students and high school students, but our middle school students are very young, right? On the lower house of the middle school. So how we protect our students. So I definitely think that we should reach out to you and get your guidance there, how to best interact with your peers. And then moving forward, I mean, even just communicating sort of the save the date, right? I mean, those are facts, you know, and those are safe to communicate out to your community, to your peers, show us, promoting that on social media. You know, you guys are, you know, gurus at social media more so than us, and you have a lot of followers, right? So I would share the information that is factual. And for now, that's like where we're starting, right? This is the date, this is the time, save the date, and then we'll have documents to follow after that.
Awesome. Thank you. Catherine, do you have anything? Hi, State Senator. How are you?
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hi.
I was just going to say, maybe, I know I put you in touch with someone reached out, one of the youth in Winchester who worked on this issue. It might be a good idea to reach out to them because they did something similar. I'm not sure. Actually,
I got one right here sitting next to me.
Oh, yay. Senator Lewis, what's your daughter's name again?
This is Jessie.
Hi,
I have two daughters. So Jessie's my youngest, and she's a senior at Winchester High School, and she was one of the student leaders of the group in Winchester that worked to get the the Seicha mascot replaced. And so if you don't mind, I invited her to join us today, and thought that you might enjoy hearing from her a little bit.
Yeah,
so
because
that's
this would be a perfect segue, because we've got a couple of our school committee members here, and we were talking, Jack was talking us through the next steps and what would be helpful. And I was about to suggest reaching out to the Winchester youth that led this. So perfect timing for Jesse to be joining us. And I'm wondering, do you host any kind of public forum prior to the vote in Winchester?
Yeah, so actually I think one of the main turning points for our process was that we hosted a very large Zoom, and it was like a community conversation. We invited multiple different Native Americans, people from registered tribal members from Massachusetts, along with school committee members, who else? The principal, the superintendent, I think, teachers from our school that are pretty well known and well liked, and different kind of influential people in town. And they were a wide variety of, some supported the mascot and some didn't. But I think what really helped was that we had those speakers, and they talked about their own experiences, and they talked about why they found the mascots to be harmful, and it helped a lot of people to see that their arguments, such as, oh, we're respecting the Native Americans that lived here before and we're honoring them, were invalid because people were telling them they were invalid. And I think that really made a big difference for at least some of the kind of well-known people in town, who, once they started to talk about, oh, maybe we should change it, then other people got along with that too.
Yes, totally. I agree. I think what we're gonna have to do as well, I think the school committee was planning on doing something with some sort of registered tribal member forum or panel. I think that was one of the emails we saw. But I think it's a great idea just to kind of hear from people who actually experience these kind of images of their own people and how we make them out to be kind of an image, which they're human beings. So I think that is, maybe thank you for that insight. I think that's really useful, and it's going to help out just kind of spread a story. I think a lot of times we are kind of in our own echo chamber, and we get to escape of actually hearing what other people's experiences actually are. Yeah.
Well said. By the way, I just wanted to say at the outset how proud I am of all of you for bringing this forward in Wakefield. I know it's not easy. I know you've already faced a lot of backlash and some very, hostile, reactions. I've seen some of that online. I think it's incredibly disrespectful to all of you, and the thoughtful approach you've taken to this. You didn't just come to this overnight. You've done your homework, and I just want to applaud you all and lift you up. And I wanted to let you know that I'm 100% behind what you're doing. You're on the right side of history, and so I want to just offer any support that I can to your effort. I know Representative Kate Lipper-Garabedian feels very much the same way. We both want to support you, and thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. Yeah. I actually was wondering, with you specifically, the logo legislation I know that you're working on. Yana, thank you, Yana, for first inviting Senator Lewis to our meeting. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. But I was reading through the thing that Yana sent out, and I thought it was super interesting about kind of new legislation. So I was wondering what your thoughts on that sort of process and what we think the end result's going to be. Sure.
Well, let me, if you don't mind, let me just tell you a little bit of how I came to sort of be interested and even aware of this issue. So some of you may or may not know this, but I was born in South Africa, And so when I was growing up in the 1970s, I know I'm pretty old, that was when South Africa was under their racist and cruel apartheid system. And so, generally for me, issues of discrimination and racial justice have always been important to me. And certainly in my time in as an elected official. But to be honest with you, I had not really thought much or knew much about Indigenous people's rights and issues around, Indigenous concerns. The way I got sort of interested in this was there was a former state representative who I served with when I was in the House of Representatives. His name was Byron Rushing. And he was basically a pretty prominent civil rights leader in the Boston area. He was very active in the anti-apartheid movement back in the 1980s. And anyway, he told me that starting in 1985, he had been filing a bill, every legislative session to change the Massachusetts state seal and flag. I don't know if you're all familiar with it. It's you see it in a lot of different places. It's the white background with the figure of it has a Native American figure with a sword over his head, kind of holding a downward pointed arrow. So that it was something that he had, for many decades was aware, and there were Native American leaders and others who had, raised issues with that seal and what it represented, and it was harmful and hurtful to particularly to Indigenous people, but others. And so because of my connection with him, that's how I sort of got educated on this. And then I filed that bill in the state Senate. And so last session, that became a priority in the legislature, which was very exciting. And that bill got passed and signed into law. So Governor Baker signed that bill about a month ago. So that's probably the first time, in Massachusetts in a very long time that we have made an Indigenous rights issue, a priority. Again, unfortunately, it took 30 years to get this passed, but we are now going to be going through a process of changing our state seal and flag. And it's going to be an inclusive process. Native American voices will be very much part of that process. And by the way, students are going to have a role in that. So that's something that'll be, available for a lot of people to participate in. But the reason I bring that up was in conversations within the legislature, the feeling was that we need to kind of take care of our own business first. So changing the state's imagery, that again, to be respectful of all people, the view was that was the first priority. We needed to get that bill passed. So that's why that bill, did get prioritized and was passed by the House and the Senate. And again, Governor Baker signed it about a month ago. The legislation to prohibit Native mascots in schools also got a lot of momentum last legislative session. There was a lot of discussion about the bill. It got released what's known as favorably from the Education Committee. So it's definitely, was clearly getting more attention than it had before. Unfortunately, it didn't, make it all the way across the finish line. So that was a disappointment, but it's being filed again, as legislation. We just started a new session, and Senator Comerford is filing it in the Senate. I'm one of the co-sponsors of the bill. And so we are going to be certainly pushing hard for the bill to move forward. But we don't know yet, what the timing will be or exactly what will happen with it. I'm pretty confident that at some point we will pass the bill and we will become like Maine and some other states, which essentially, prohibit the use of Native American mascots in schools, across the board. But we're not there yet. So we do continue to need, efforts at the grassroots level, like what you're doing in Wakefield, to in the meantime, to really take action to replace these harmful mascots. So, and I think one of the arguments you could make is that, you don't want to wait till the state forces you, to replace your existing mascot. Nobody wants to be backed into that position. So you'd rather do it on your own terms. And that I think could be, one of a number of arguments that, that you can make. So go ahead.
Yeah, I
Jesse.
just want to touch upon something my dad said. He talked about in the beginning how he just didn't know much about the subject at all. He had never really thought about it. And I think that that's a really important factor, is that obviously within your town, within my town, there's the group that's very pro mascot, there's a group that's very anti-mascot, but the large majority of people are simply uneducated and they don't know enough about it. So usually they either say, oh, I don't care either way, or they say, I like it, I don't really know much about it. And I remember in the beginning of our process, I texted out a bunch of my friends and I said, what are your thoughts on the mascot? And I remember that some of them said, oh, I like it. It's always like been here. I like cheering on for sports. I think it honors the Native Americans, blah, blah, blah. And then however many months later, 5 months later, I remember that one of my really good friends who had said that was like, I feel really bad. I was uneducated. I completely understand why we need to change it now. I just didn't know enough about it. And I definitely think that there's good ways to go about educating people and there's bad ways. And I would not recommend the residence page. I don't know what's happened so far on your residence page, but I know that through our residence page, we put out like a very unbiased conversation where we were just asking people's thoughts, and it quickly got very heated. And there's the people that were pro Sachem, and then there was people that were anti Sachem, and then throwing around the, you're racist card, which doesn't help anyone. And I definitely think that it's really important when engaging with people that are pro mascot to kind of listen to them and agree with them on some points and say, yes, I can understand why you like this mascot, not going in with a really negative attitude, listening to them and making it seem like you actually care about what they're saying, and then trying to ease into, I think that we can still represent our town in a good way. For example, with the Sachem, people were saying that it was the Sachem pride and that our town was great at sports and that it was this great mascot that was representing how, the students all work together and how we had a lot of pride. And so when talking to people like my friends that were pro Sachem, I would say, totally, I understand that this mascot is what you think represents, how awesome Winchester is. And I think that that's true. Like Winchester is great, but there's ways that we can represent it without, hurting other people. And we want everyone in the town to be included. So some things that we did was a letter writing campaign. So we organized writing letters to the school committee. And that really helped so that when we got to the point where we were having the votes, the school committee had already heard like hundreds upon hundreds of emails from people. So they were kind of under the idea that, okay, we really need to make this change because it's important. We created social media accounts where we shared information. Some people don't really read emails or newsletters and they go on Instagram. Along with that, I think it's really important to talk to, like I said, Native Americans. And if you can't have Zooms, maybe have an interview with them or record a video. You just want to educate the general public. And I think that once you do that and you kind of can turn the tide, that'll convince a lot more people to agree with you, especially during today's climate with, the Redskins changing their mascot and everything that's going on with Black Lives Matter. It's a good time now to capitalize on it. And I think if you can convince like a majority of the people that are undecided, then you'll kind of sway your town. And even though there's always going to be very staunch supporters, there still are today. I still see students making poor comments about it. But if a majority of the town sees that it's the right idea to replace it, then those negative comments won't really matter anymore.
I would just add, it was very powerful. There was at least one student, maybe Jesse, maybe more, current students, and also there was an alumni of the Winchester schools who are Native American, and their voices, were very, it was very moving and powerful to hear them give kind of firsthand testimony, essentially, of how this impacts. Either impacts them right now having this mascot, or how it impacted them when they were a student. By the way, I think I see some members of the school committee on, and thank you for your leadership on this. And I have been corresponding with Greg Lialkos. I'm not sure if Greg's on. And the good news is they are, there's an organizing effort statewide that you can certainly tap into. And they are Native American leaders in Massachusetts who've been very active in, attending community forums and speaking to school committees. So I'm not sure if you're connected in with those folks yet, but they're wonderful, and they'll be happy to. This is one of the nice things about doing meetings by Zoom. They can be anywhere. Some of them are from Western Massachusetts or different parts, but they'll be happy to join a community forum, or even come to a school committee meeting to talk about why it's, again, so hurtful to have these kinds of mascots.
Jack, can I say something?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, both Jesse and Senator Lewis. And I just want to kind of remind everyone that because of the process the Youth Council went through, many people were many of us, myself included, really didn't know a lot about the subject. We're kind of neutral on it back in July. I'm always buying my kids warrior gear and stuff, and hadn't really thought about it. And we do have a unique situation where we have this wonderful family with this Native American history in Wakefield. So I'm glad their point of view is being going to be told too, because that's an important part of Wakefield's story. So I think we just want to make sure that that's clear in that education process, because that did inform a lot of us to say, maybe I need to look at this issue a little differently. So great points. And that's my question. If we do a student survey, is there going to be any information on both sides of it before they put that information, or has that information been out there? Because I think it's important for them to hear both sides and then make their thoughts known to school committee.
Yeah. The one thing I would just say, and I'm not as familiar nearly as you all are with the history specifically of the Wakefield Warrior, but I know there was a Native American or a person or a family that had some Native American roots who was involved in designing it. I just want, you probably know this already, but just to be clear, of course, there are always going to be some Native American people who will say, oh, these mascots do honor us and we like them, or we have no problem with them. And in fact, the proponents of keeping these mascots know there are some people out there that they will essentially trot out to make that case. But what I want to make crystal clear, and again, you probably all know this, all of the major Native American organizations in Massachusetts and nationally all are 100% in agreement, and have been for decades, by the way, that these mascots and images and symbols are very harmful and hurtful to Native American youth and their community, and to others as well. So it is not like, it's kind of like with climate change, where because there was 99% of scientists have been saying that climate change is happening, and maybe there's a few who are out there saying it's not. They're not equivalent. Just because there might be a scientist who's going to say that climate change isn't happening or we shouldn't care about it. Let's just make sure we recognize that, just like 99.9% of scientists agree it is, same thing is true here. Virtually all Native American leaders in the state and nationally are all in agreement on this, that how harmful these mascots are. And they've been calling for them to be replaced for a long time.
And I think it's really important for you all as kind of the leaders of this, because I'm sure people will ask you about it. And I don't know if this has already happened to you, but people knew I was involved. And so some of the more strong station supporters would come up to me and they would say really rude things. And it's really important when you're in a conversation with someone, don't immediately just pull the "it's racist" card, because people will not listen to you if you call them racist. They'll zone it out. So it's really important for you all to learn how to talk to someone factually, because if people give argument about why they support it, and you can respond in a respectful manner, but solely giving facts, they can't debate facts, and then that usually either leads them to kind of rethink what they're saying, or to just stop talking to you about it because they realize that they're kind of wrong, at least on one front. So yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Colleen, I saw you had your hand raised, and if you had a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to Senator Lewis's and Jesse's, what they were stating. I did neglect to tell you when I was telling you the process that we were going through that we are communicating. Senator Lewis, Greg and I joined a conversation the other night with Laurel and Rhonda, who is representing the Center for Native American Affairs. And we had a really good conversation about Laurel is a sociology professor. Is that right, Jason, at MIT? Or I'm sorry if I'm getting
That's
that
right. I think she's at Springfield College, but she's been leading the statewide effort in this area. Yeah, she's terrific. Glad
right.
you
And Rhonda was able to speak to the Native American perspective and how they're able to support discussions like you're talking about. And Laurel was able to speak to sort of how we understand how modern day society works and how we speak to people, which you guys are having that conversation right now, respecting the pride that people have attached to their community and their logos, right? And not underestimating that or negating that, right? So we had that conversation, which got on for a while, but we are in the works of scheduling the panel discussion. When we talked to Rhonda about that, she was very adamant that we do this in a very protected way because there has been experience in more of a public forum where they're attacked, and so we kind of talked about it happening in the format of a school committee meeting where the public comment period is organized and structured, that questions can come in and that we can sort of, manage those questions. And then that the school committee during our regular portion of our meeting would be able to ask questions of the panel. Now, I don't think that's true for everyone because Jesse, you were talking about how some representatives from some Native American groups or tribal nations may be more comfortable with a public forum. So we can kind of parse that out, but so far that's our connection. And Greg actually reached out to them today to see if we can sort of speed this up because we talked about our aggressive timeline. And so we're hoping that this pulls in because it is so important that when you go to sort of survey time or we go to vote time, that all of that happens before, right? Mm-hmm. So we're trying our hardest to get that in. And if we have to push out our vote a little, we will, because it's important for that education to happen and for us to hear that perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Also, if you're trying to kind of speed this up, you don't always need to survey the whole town. I think what we really struggled with was we debated kind of putting really public surveys where we asked, do you support this or do you not? And we decided against that because people could just go on Facebook and argue, well, look at all these people that don't support it, and that's not going to get you very far. So it's more important to stay really organized. I think what helped in Winchester was that the anti-mascot, like our group, was way more organized and efficient than the people that wanted to keep it. So there was definitely people that wanted to keep it, but they did not organize meetings to talk about it. They weren't writing letters. They weren't like prepared in the same way we were. So when it came down to it, I think that we convinced the school committee to change it. And then after they voted against it, there was some people who are saying that it wasn't fair because it wasn't a townwide decision. But I think it's more important if you're trying to get it pushed to get as much support as you can by just educating people, but not always relying on having everyone support it. You don't need everyone's support. And if you're looking to find everyone's support, it's not going to happen because there's people that have lived in your town for 70 years and their great grandpa played football and they're attached to it in a way that like I wouldn't be or someone else wouldn't be that just moved there or hasn't lived there that long. So that sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, sorry, you go first.
Oh, I was going to say that, there was, as Jesse said, there was a very good public forum, it was over Zoom, where I think Rhonda was one of the speakers, Jesse, right? But there were 3 or 4 Native leaders who joined and then a lot of community leaders and community members. So I don't remember exactly how we kept it sort of
we
respectful.
didn't
but
have an
maybe
open forum.
it was
What
like
we
a
did was
webinar.
that kind of,
maybe.
it was like a Zoom so you could see everyone.
Yeah.
And our organization, like Winston Mac, had questions prepared for the speakers. And so we asked them the questions and we had them talk about it, and we didn't open it up to debate or anything. What we did was we had the questions set, and we had the people who were representatives of the tribal representatives talking about the questions and their own experiences. And then at the very end, we opened it up to questions. And that way, after people had sat for an hour and listened to these people speak about their experiences, they were less likely to blatantly say, I don't think it's racist. Because if you listen to someone talk about something for an hour, you're going to be deterred from probably turning away everything they just said. So I think that it might be a good idea to not have it be just a public debate and have it more structured. And then at the end have questions instead of having people be able to ask questions like in the middle.
Definitely. I think Lily, you're from Braintree, correct? You helped work with your school committee. So if you have any advice for us, I don't have any Jesse or Senator Lewis points. That'd be great.
Yeah, so I'm in college, and over the summer I helped helped lead Braintree's effort to get rid of our mascot. Our mascot was the Womps, and it was literally a Native American head that was a very generic like photo that anybody can use online, but for some reason my town was like very attached to it. And so I totally feel all of y'all's pain. And I also want to like, before I say like kind of like my like the way that Braintree we moved, I just want to also acknowledge the fact that in this space there are people of color who are young people of color who are in this movement, and to like make sure that you all are taking care of yourself as you are, you know, actively engaging in like anti-racism work and literally trying to convince white people that this is racist, right? And I know that that takes a lot out of emotional labor out of y'all. So I want to name that into the space and hope that you are doing things to take care of yourself. And going off of that, like that was like an important thing that we did in the Braintree movement was how intentionally, who do we show up front, right? And who is the visible people leading the movement. Demographic breakdown of Braintree is it's very white. That's just how it is. Braintree High School, there's a ton of like pride because, you know, generations of like suburban families grew up in Braintree. You know, their grandparents were like Womps, etc. So we knew that like it wouldn't help if it was like an Asian person, a Black person, Indigenous person being like, oh my God, this is racist, because there was that like generational attachment to something that they really shouldn't be attached to, right? But like acknowledging that. And like one way that we found was really effective was hunting down alumni who have in high school like have been really pro mascot, but then after going off to college and, you know, learning about racism, changed their opinion. Like we actually found a girl who back in their high school days like wrote a op-ed in the Braintree newspaper being like I defend the mascot, like pro mascot, blah blah blah. But then when we reached out to her and like because we saw that she redacted her statement, because now she's a social media influencer and you got to do this stuff like that. She redacted her statement. So we contacted her and we brought her back into the movement, and we asked her to write a public op-ed explaining why she changed her mind as a white woman, right? And I think that's really powerful because I think people in your communities will resonate that and know that it's okay to make mistakes and now think differently now that you're presented with new information. And that to us was like the most important part of education, because I agree with what's been said about how it's like probably very ineffective to just be like, oh, like you're racist, right? Because that makes people shut down, even though it really shouldn't. But I think that having it be like a public debate thing is also very effective because, you know, then you're saying like both sides are right. And in this case, like it's only one side that's right, right? Especially when you already have many Indigenous people and research, and like mind you, like literal research being done that shows how these mascots have like negative psychological effects to not just Indigenous peoples in your schools, but also people of color. So I think my advice, like to be succinct, is one, first and foremost, protect your people of color in your movements. Make sure that they're not at the forefront of like the hatred and heat Two, utilize stories of alumni, people who are in your communities who are willing to potentially write op-eds and show that, they've once maybe have thought that this was okay and now they learned, and it's okay to unlearn what you've been taught. And three, to really educate people, like pull from research because it's out there. I hesitate at asking Indigenous people to reshare their traumas over and over again, especially since over the summer, like every town, right, that has racist mascots are pulling at these like Native elders and leaders and telling them to like come and share their stories. And while that is really, really good, important, we should also like be cautious of asking the most marginalized to share their emotional labor. So how do you pull from research that already exists online in order to make your case? For us in Braintree, like, we structure our movement around the theme of a better Braintree. Like that was our Instagram, that was kind of like our messaging, like how do we make a better Braintree? Like how do we make a better community? And we pulled from like research online that shows like, that literally gave facts and information on like the psychological effects of mascots on kids, stuff like that. So yeah, like proving things with information. If you have any like specific questions for me, like please ask. But those are kind of like my 2 cents about this.
Thank you. Yeah, Lauren had a question for Senator Lewis. I want to get to her before anyone has to go. So.
Yeah, hello. First of all, thank you so much for coming, and thank you to Yana for connecting us. I think this is a really awesome opportunity for everyone. So Senator Lewis, I'm wondering, within your career, it's pretty unavoidable to kind of face challenges and backlash from people. And when we began our work, we were aware that we were taking a risk with this happening. And I think that within the past few weeks that risk really came to light and kind of surfaced. And I think all of us have been just a little bit discouraged. I know I have. So I'm wondering, within your career, what kind of strategies that you have developed and have worked for you to kind of just keep pushing through that?
Thank you, Lauren. Yeah, that's such a good question for all of us to think on. I often say, when you are somebody who is a community leader or a civic leader or an elected official, if you're not making some people unhappy or uncomfortable, you're probably not doing your job, right? Because that's just the reality. I have worked on, many issues that are controversial, and where I've certainly had very, difficult conversations with some people and backlash. But I will admit, this issue is kind of uniquely polarizing. I mean, we could probably, talk for a while about why that is, that it sort of brings out some of the just such strong feelings in some people, who will oppose, retiring these mascots. So I'm very sympathetic to what you're all feeling and dealing with. Until a few years ago, in fact, it was almost impossible to replace these. The battles at the community level were just so bitter and divisive. I think that's changing. We are seeing more and more communities successfully making the change. I think it's significant that the Redskins, the Washington Redskins, are finally retiring that name. Same is true for the Cleveland Indians baseball team. So I think that is helpful. But I think just having my larger advice is just having strength of your convictions. I think, like I said at the outset, I'm just so proud of all of you for taking this on. Right. And you did that because you did your homework. You understand, that this as, that this is both an issue of Indigenous rights, but also broader racial justice. And, you're fighting for the strength of your convictions. You're on the right side of history. There's no doubt about that. It's, it is tough. It's painful. And, there's going to be backlash. But I think as long as you continue to have, continue as much as you can to have respectful conversations with people. You can't do that with everyone. Some people are just not going to treat other people with respect, but fortunately most people you can. And I think as my daughter was saying, most people on this issue haven't really thought about it, don't really know a lot about, mascots and sort of, the racial justice issues around them. So I think as long as you stay focused on that, be respectful, be positive, as Jesse was saying, stay focused on the facts, and center as much as you can youth voices, Native voices. I think you'll be successful, and it is part of a broader effort. I think it is about making Wakefield a welcoming community for all. That's why this issue, some people will dismiss it and say, well, it's not that important, but I think that's what makes it important. It does. Our images and our symbols say a lot about who we are, what we value, what we respect, and so I think by following through on this, it will send a strong message that Wakefield is a welcoming community for everybody, of all different backgrounds, races, ethnicities, religions, and so on.
Thank you. Yeah. Anthony, you have a question?
I'm sorry, yes, I actually had a question for Jessie, but if she had to go, that's perfectly fine.
She can come back. There. Oh, come back. Question for you. She's on her way back down.
Wonderful, thank you.
While we're waiting for Jessie, I just wanted to, our situation in Wakefield, I love that in Quincy and in Winchester, they were kind of grassroots effort. And our situation is a little different in Wakefield for them being the appointed youth council. So they did the youth council did their presentation, and now it's up to the school committee, but then individual youth council members are engaging in the process, and we as a body can support them. But just because of open meeting laws and things like that, all of our meetings have to be public, and that it's a wonderful thing because we want this to be open, and we're open about our process and everything. And we really do encourage young people's voices on both sides of this issue to be part of our conversation. So I just wanted to remind folks that are new here about that.
And by the way, I'm sorry too, I forgot to, I just wanted to thank Lily as well for joining the Zoom and for her comments and her work. And I have to brag that Lily's actually an intern in my office this winter. So we're very proud of her work, and hope maybe one of you will want to be an intern with us in the future as well.
So Lily, are you still in high school?
She's in college now.
Oh, okay. All right. Phenomenal speaker.
Yep, she's in college now. Yep, Jesse's back.
Hi, sorry.
No worries at all. So my question was, so you mentioned having that large public forum, which I think based on what you said about the structure about it seems super, super effective. And you mentioned that you didn't have too many type of surveys, but you did have a few. We've conducted a few ourselves over the past few months. I was just wondering if you could provide a few more details about what exactly those few surveys were and how they worked.
Yeah, so and I don't know, I think you guys mentioned that what we were doing was through like just us students. It had nothing to do with like the school committee. It wasn't sponsored or anything. So we started with like 3 kids, me and 2 other kids in a room talking about what we wanted to do, and then it transformed into a group of like 20 kids, I think. But initially what we did was just texted out our contacts list, like people I knew, my friends, but I knew that some of them would probably be pro-SACHM and some were probably anti-SACHM, and I gave them a list of questions. I don't remember the specific questions. I think I said, do you support the SACHM? Do you know the history of the SACHM? Like, what is it? What does it mean to you? Like those type of questions, I think. And probably like half of the people just said like they didn't really have an opinion, like they didn't care. But I think what was helpful was that the people that said they liked this HM, and they were talking about how they had been taught in school that there was like, what was it, like Squaw Sachem, and that she had peacefully given the land and that we were honoring her with the mascot. And I think from that point we could see, okay, so these people genuinely believe that this mascot is honoring those whose land it was, and that's why they don't see this as an issue. And I think that it was a good point for us to learn what they had been taught and why they supported it. And then from there we were able to kind of approach the subject of teaching people the actual history and sharing with them how modern Native Americans feel about the mascot, and for our specifically kind of breaking down some falsehoods. So for example, the image itself, people said that it represented those in this area, and then we were able to kind of do some research and find out that no, it was just a generalized stereotype, and it was actually of a Plains Native American, so not even from this area. And then we talked to this woman named Joanna, who's a historian, and she was able to share some insight about Squaw Sachem and the history of the land, and it wasn't this kind of picture perfect land transfer that was peaceful. It was a lot more complicated than that, as most of these things are. And then I think we did put something in the residence page very early on. We learned that was not a good suggestion, because some people are definitely respectful and they were commenting helpful things, but other people were just straight up saying, why are you trying to get rid of this? Like, this is a stupid issue for you to be working on. There's more important things, like this is our town pride, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, I think that it's good to survey people that you know will be respectful, or at least not doing it on Facebook, maybe sending out, I think we did maybe a Google form that we sent out, and it could be anonymous so that you understand where people are coming from and what misconceptions that you can kind of set the truth to. And because like I was saying earlier, if you can just explain with facts, that's really helpful. So if someone were to argue with you about the history of your mascot, I don't know it at all, and then you were to say, actually, I've done research and this is what I found out and this is the actual history, and then they can't really, continue to say what they said to you before. So that's what I would survey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Anthony. Thank you. I just want to recognize we have Town Council Chair Ann Santos and a school committee member, Tom Markham, on here as well. We appreciate all our elected officials coming. Anyone has any more questions for Jesse or Senator Lewis about the state flag, the legislation going through the State House right now? I don't see it. Thank you for joining us, guys. Really appreciate your insight. It's super productive. This has been a great use of time. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely a pleasure. I mean, thank Jesse and Lily as well. And we all want to be a resource to you. So I want to also introduce Emily Graniff from my office, who's on, and certainly Catherine and others have her contact information. Any information or resources we can provide, or we can connect you with people that are working on this, that can support your efforts, we're happy to do. I'm also happy personally to, address the school committee or provide a letter from me, also supporting the work you're doing, referencing what we're doing at the state level. So any way we can support you. I know it's hard. It's going to continue to be hard all the way through. I wish everybody could approach this in a polite, respectful way, and most people do, but unfortunately not all. But again, you're on the right side of history, so I encourage you to continue the good work you're doing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you guys for coming, and we will definitely be in touch.
Yeah. Also, one last note. I have learned to, instead of letting the hate comments or things that people say make me upset, to like laugh it off, because if you look at it in a different light, you can just kind of be like, this is funny that these people are saying these things to me, instead of taking it personally. Just don't take it too seriously, and know that what you're doing is helping people, and that you're making your town a more inclusive place, and that's a very good thing. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you guys.
Proud of my daughter.
Awesome. We really appreciate it, and we'll definitely be in touch. We thank you for coming.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Bye, everyone. Okay.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Yes, thank you, Emily. Okay, so we have a few more things on our agenda quickly to go through. I know it's been a long day. We really want to get to vacation, so we'll get to do this super quickly. Communications Outreach Subcommittee. Anthony, Alyssa, what up?
Okay. I will try to make this as quick as possible. So basically the survey that we told everybody about last week has been sent out. All the responses have come in. We got 604 responses. So it was super successful, lots of information that we hope to do a lot of good things with. We're working with the guidance department at the high school and mass support to put together data and kind of think of some suggestions or proposals that we have to kind of work to better things for students. And we're going to have a presentation for the next meeting. We're also working with the Galvin still to hopefully get out a survey for them. In terms of youth council applications, we're trying to start promoting that soon. We need to work out a few more details before we start putting things out, but that is moving along very quickly as well. And then at our last subcommittee meeting, we started talking to Jenna about her good news subcommittee, and oh, Catherine, that's fabulous. Okay, thank you. I just saw that. We're working with Jenna to hopefully start something like a Feel Good Friday on our social media pages to try and lift people's spirits a little bit, because obviously things are still really hard. So if you have any ideas or someone you want to highlight, send them on over. We are more than happy to feature people.
So Alyssa, the thought on this is to promote young people in Wakefield doing good things or
yes
things. Okay.
Yeah.
So do you want to, are you all going to create a form, or how are people going to send Jenna and the communications team that information?
I can definitely put a form together and send it out by the end of the weekend.
Great.
Awesome. I want to say something in general. The youth council applications are up on the town website, so everyone who will be here, who wants to apply for next year, all our juniors and below, go up and apply. The town council upped our numbers. So now we will have 11 voting high school members and 6 voting middle school members. So we now have 17 voting members, which is fantastic. Appreciate the town council doing that. So go on there and apply. Are there any questions for Alyssa or Anthony? You have anything else to add?
Jack, one thing I would like to add is that if you are going to be a member next year and you're already on the council, you have to reapply. It's not like you're not automatically guaranteed a spot. So just keep that in mind.
Yes, awesome. Okay, thank you, Anthony and Alyssa. Thank you for that. We had an update from the police department liaisons, but they are not here, so we'll skip that. Put that on the next agenda. Safe Routes to School. Maggie, how is that?
It was pretty good. So I did that Wednesday with Judy Crocker from Safe Routes to School. And so I basically met her at the Galvin, and we walked around and I showed her some extremely dangerous intersections that I dealt with. And so we went all the way down towards the gas station by Dunkin' Donuts, and we went in front of the Galvin at the main street crossing, and she took pictures, and she was going to talk to the Safe Routes people and try and form up like a document on what happened, and she was going to try and get permission to share it with us and share what they're going to do with it. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Next thing, any other liaison updates? Anyone expanding meetings? I know Ali, you went to the PTO, so hopefully that's all been going well. Maggie, you hand raise. Sorry.
Yeah, I have a liaison update.
Yeah. First, Ali, do you have anything new, or then we can go to Maggie?
No, I don't have anything new about my transfer to the PTO.
Okay, great. Okay, Maggie, what's up?
So I got an email from Jacqueline a little while ago from the BB Library, and she sent me the brochure for the commit to your community. So I can share that with you guys right now if you want.
Yeah, totally go for it.
Hold on. Okay, so this was for earlier in like December and November. So all of these events have already happened, and I believe there is either a brochure already out for January and February, or there is one on the way. So I will contact Jacqueline about that. So basically, this was the brochure they sent out, and it just talks about how it's important for you to like get involved with your community. And so they're having 3 sections of the commit to your community, which is get involved, act with compassion, and advocate for change. So commit to your community, get involved already happened in October. And then act with compassion started in January, and advocate for change starts in March. So basically they had a keynote Wednesday, October 28th, a book discussion, the Authenticity Project, which was in November. Then there was a talk about an author, another book discussion, and a mutual aid panel discussion, which was in early December. And then these are just the people that spoke and were involved. And yeah, that's about it.
Great, thank you. Anyone else have any updates about the liaison positions? Cool.
I just,
yeah. Sorry, Catherine.
Manuela. Is she still on this? Oh, there you are.
Did you see my email?
Yes, I saw your email. So we are going to make a switch for your liaison assignment. So I'll send you an email with the description of the 2 groups, and you can kind of make your choice. But I'll do email introductions, and you could even talk to both of the heads of both of those committees and decide which one you would like to be a liaison with. So,
all right, thank you.
Appreciate anyone at any time. If your liaison connection isn't really working or people aren't responding to you, please let me know, and I can kind of help with that. Especially being in town hall, I can walk to somebody's office and have some conversations and everything. And I know some of you are going to be busy in the time coming up. Thomas with the health department, William with the planning board, and several of you. We also, because Amelia represented the Council on Aging, that's another option for you, Emanuela. We don't have a representative to the Council on Aging right now, and they are a really important part of our community. So something to think about.
Cool. Okay. Liaison updates. Anyone else? Okay. So next thing we need to talk about is our next meeting. I think we'll probably do March 5th, which is the first Friday in March, because next week's vacation and the week after will be the last week in February. So I think the first Friday in March, March 5th at 3:30. Is that good for everyone? Or, yeah. Okay, cool. Anything else we need to discuss? Anything, have any fun updates or things they want to talk about?
Could I just ask Alyssa to list upcoming communication subcommittee meetings so people that want to attend can come?
Yes, let me just pull my email up really quick so I don't give anybody the wrong date. So on February 18th, which is next Thursday, yes, next Thursday, we're having a subcommittee meeting with Ann Santos to finalize details about youth council applications and all that kind of thing. And then the one after that is the 22nd, which is a Monday. That's just a regular subcommittee meeting, so all the kind of updates, planning, things that go into that. And then we have one with guidance, but that is essentially to plan everything that we're presenting the next meeting. Yes. So all that stuff is up on our our page of the town website, excuse me. But if anybody wants the links or anything, just let me know and I can get them to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Alyssa. Anything else we talked about? See none. Okay. To hear a motion to end the meeting.
I motion.
Thanks, Maggie. Here a second.
I
I
second.
second.
Thank you, Manuela. Any discussion? See none. We are going to go through the roll. Manuela.
Oh, yes.
Alyssa.
Yes.
Lauren.
Yes.
Summer.
Yes.
Yana.
Yes.
Maggie.
Yes.
Janela, and William.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. The meeting's over. We'll see you guys on March 5th. Have a good vacation. Relax. Don't do homework. We'll see you all soon. Bye, everyone.